Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, and specifically the Arsenal transfer show. And I start this show with, first of all, a huge apology for those that are tuning in at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. And it is tomorrow because I'm recording this at 10:15 UK time this evening. First time. We did 100 shows at 8 a.m. every single day, back to back. And it is quite apt that the 101st is at a different time. There is a reason for that. As many of you know, I started my new job with Reach and Football London today. It was a hectic first crazy day in the role, and it's set to continue as the weeks and months go on. And tomorrow I am not able to do the 8 a.m. show because I'm actually going to be at the Emirates tomorrow doing a little bit of work there. Excited to kind of show you what we've been working on and what we're going to be doing ahead of the opening game of the Premier League season. So that's why I'm doing this show this evening and why you're not seeing my face on your screens tomorrow morning. But I didn't want to miss it out, and I still wanted to do the show, and so that's why I'm still doing it at this very late hour, to make sure that you didn't miss a show and that there wasn't one missing for you. So here it is, and I hope you're well and good, and I hope you can still drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. We did hit 26,000 subscribers today, so a massive thank you to everyone that did so. And of course, you can continue to help support the channel by supporting our sponsor as well, the Arsenal Reviews Pick Your Team game, which is only a couple of days you've got left to get your early points in for the brand new season, to predict how you think Mikel Arteta is going to line up against Brentford. You do this for every single game throughout the season. You get points for how many players you get right. And so you should get predicting, because you could win up to £1,000, and it's completely free to play as well. So make sure you check that out. Link is in the description. So there you go. Let's push ahead, though, with the transfer news of this evening, and of course going through until tomorrow as well. And we start off with Lucas Torreira. And Italian reports indicate that advanced talks are now ongoing between Arsenal and Lazio to agree a deal for the Uruguayan midfielder. Kind of details around a figure or a type of structure, whether it's a permanent deal or a loan deal, is still yet to kind of surface, but the indication is that Lazio and Arsenal are indeed in negotiations and talks to decide the future of the Uruguayan central midfielder. So we will wait and see as to whether or not he does indeed move away, but the likelihood of him staying at Arsenal was already slim, and it appears even more slim at this stage in time. Moving then on to our next main story regarding outs, and Joe Willock is still very much at Arsenal. In fact, Eddie Nketiah has posted an image onto his Instagram story showing Joe Willock is still very much at the club, and posing there of a Player of the Month trophy from his time at Newcastle. And it's interesting because whilst Arsenal and Newcastle have agreed a figure of around £25 million, we're led to believe, it's actually the negotiations between Willock and Newcastle that is proving the difficult part of this deal. Arsenal are fine with the offer. Newcastle are happy with paying that amount of money. It's actually the personal terms which are proving to be a little tricky between the two parties, and they are still a little bit apart on their expectations. Obviously, he's earning a decent wage at Arsenal, considering the fact that he signed a new deal a couple of years ago, but he's probably expecting a pay rise to be a much more integrated part of the Newcastle team next season. But in regards to kind of the actual figure, that's sorted. It's just the wages that need to be sorted out, and that could still take a little bit of time before it is indeed confirmed. Now, we move on to the possible ins at Arsenal this summer, and Arsenal have been linked once again with Borussia Mönchengladbach Swiss midfielder Dennis Zakaria. I mean, he's an interesting player because, of course, he plays for the Swiss national side, and Granit Xhaka currently keeps him out of that team. Him and Freuler both are keeping him out of the team at the moment. And we've done a tactical breakdown on Zakaria, which you can, of course, check out on the channel. I was joined by Swiss footballing scout Oliver Zeziger, who really does have a lot of good stuff to say about Zakaria, and he believes that he will go on to, of course, inherit that central midfield role from Granit Xhaka and take it forward as well. And Zakaria is a very interesting player that's got a lot of work rate defensively, but can still progress the ball forwards, and it's an area of his game that he's gradually developing. He did suffer a big injury at the start of last, or the end of the previous season before last, which carried on into the current season, and that kept him out a bit. But he came back towards the end of the campaign, way before the end of the campaign, to be fair, and had a very strong strong impact on Marco Ruiz's team last season, and Arsenal see him as a possible option. And he has already actually told the club that he wishes to leave. Max Iberl, the club's executive in kind of their recruitment field, has said publicly that Zakaria is looking for a move away from the club this summer. And there are a number of teams, including ourselves, Napoli, Spurs, Milan, I believe, are another one too, all interested in taking hold of Zakaria. So it's one that we will definitely have to keep our eye on going forwards. If we then have a look at our next story, and an interesting one regarding Alexandre Lacazette and Tammy Abraham. Now, Roma have agreed a deal with Chelsea to buy Tammy Abraham for what we believe to be a figure of around £34 million, with the possibility of a buyback clause also being inserted into that contract. Now, the interesting thing is that he himself, Tammy Abraham, isn't 100% on this type of deal and is actually still in need of being convinced, and has actually spoken with Jose Mourinho about what he might have, what he might see himself in kind of that team, because he needs to be convinced. Meanwhile, Arsenal have reportedly offered Roma the opportunity to sign Lacazette so that Arsenal can then move for Tammy Abraham. And then Tammy Abraham is certainly more keen on the idea of moving to Arsenal than he is on moving to Roma. Roma do have European football, although it is only in the European Conference League next season. And so a move to Arsenal is certainly preferred anyway because of being in England, and he is an Arsenal fan previously too, before joining up with Chelsea. A very complicated one, lots of moving parts, which also do kind of affect the reliability of this as a story. I still would very much feel like Abraham will end up playing in Italy next season, and Lacazette is going to remain as an Arsenal player. That's my prediction. Doesn't mean that's necessarily going to happen, but that's the way that I see it right now. Now, our penultimate story of the day is on Brendan Rodgers opening up about James Maddison. And he says it's about having a sense of realism, knowing that at some point it will happen, he said to Sky Sports. I think at this moment in time, Leicester City is a very attractive place to be. If you want to develop as a player, work in world-class training facilities, and be a part of a real community club with a family feel, then this is a great place for you. But having been at so-called big clubs, I also understand what the draw of them can be for a player. For us, it's just about developing this football club. Now, very open words about a possible sale of James Maddison. Certainly something that could happen in the weeks to come. He's a player that is certainly on Arsenal's radar. But interestingly, Gunnerblog, aka James McNicholas of The Athletic, has said that he feels very much like it's more so Maddison's intentions of moving to Arsenal are kind of a heavier weight, let's say, than Arsenal's interest in bringing Maddison to Arsenal. Maybe that's why there's a difference in a fee at the moment, and why they're not necessarily overcommitting with a figure for Maddison. And of course, the Martin Odegaard situation, which continues to unravel and swing through Newton's cradle, as we use the analogy of very regularly about that situation, is leaving us in a little bit of a limbo, unfortunately. So we'll wait and see what happens with James Maddison. Nothing new in regards to kind of talks or a breakthrough in bid or anything, but Brendan Rodgers has been speaking about him quite vaguely and not committing him to a future at Leicester Football Club, that's for sure. Now, our final story is a big one. And Aaron Ramsdale, as reported by Chris Wheatley of Football London, has reported that advanced talks between both Arsenal and Sheffield United are now taking place to secure the signing of Aaron Ramsdale. A upfront figure in the region of £24 million is expected to be paid in that kind of region, but the deal could rise to as high as £30 million for the England international goalkeeper. Is this a good move for Arsenal? At that price, I lean much towards the no end of the scale. I would have much rather seen Arsenal invest heavily in other key areas of the pitch, and I'd rather they'd spent maybe the 14 million that it would have been able, or maybe the 10 million to save on, say, a Sam Johnston that you could have got for cheaper, and put that money into concerning a Maddison type deal and securing that deal. It's a weird one. There are certain indices that I think can make this make sense. I've got a piece coming out tomorrow on Football London that should provide some more insight about why Arsenal are very much interested in Aaron Ramsdale, and you can have a read of that when it does come out. But I still find this a bit of a head scratcher. I can't quite put my finger on why the club are really pushing to the level that they are. We'll see. We'll see what happens with this. But some sources from Sheffield United have said that all of the recent bids between Arsenal and Sheffield United have been rejected, and that these talks may be ongoing, but there's been no fourth official bid yet made by Arsenal to date. But we will wait and see as to how this one changes. And that is all of the news from today. And if you're watching this in the morning and you're watching this on the 12th of August, all the news are from yesterday. Again, a massive apologies for those that would have been tuning in at 8 a.m. expecting a live show. I am working. I am at the Emirates tomorrow, so I can't do the 8 a.m. show. But it will be back, and there will be shows and days where I can do at 8 a.m. still. So don't worry. There will still be 8 a.m. shows. There just wasn't able to be one today. We do move now on to the final part of the show, which is getting your thoughts and your feelings in the comment section too. So if you do have a question, then please make sure you throw them in, and we'll try and get as many of them answered as possible. We start off with Social, who's one of our most loyal members of the channel. Always a pleasure having the chat box. Social, he says, will Lacazette get a new deal if he hasn't gone when the window closes? I imagine it is something that the club will look to sort out. A 1-year extension would make a lot of sense, but Lacazette may choose not to sign one, may choose to let his contract run down and then get a big signing on fee and wage wherever he moves on after Arsenal. It would make a lot of financial sense for him, especially considering that there is a lot of young talent coming through in the striking position for Arsenal. Suraj says, if we do sign Aaron Ramsdale, does that mean that we will not make a move for Onana? Any chance of Leno leaving? Suraj, you can almost guarantee that Onana is not going to be coming to Arsenal this summer. We heard from Matt Ryan specifically saying that he his camp sounded out Arsenal, but the feeling was from Arsenal that they are going for a homegrown keeper this summer, and so Onana doesn't fit into that. Even if Leno was to leave, I feel like they may then look to promote from within and see Okonkwo take that second place slot if he does improve enough to feel like he is enough to fulfill that backup position in the team. Powell says, offer for Ødegaard rejected, £50 million. I've not seen anything regarding a rejected deal, unless that's completely new, and I can't see anything on my timeline. So if you've seen something I haven't, Powell, then fair enough, but I've not seen anything about an offer being rejected for Martin Ødegaard so far. Walk says, how much do you think Ramsdale would cost if he wasn't English? Good question. And he certainly would cost less, because homegrown players and English players do tend to cost more in the Premier League, going from one Premier League club, or rather one English club, to another English club. Probably less than £20 million is probably the honest answer to the question. But him being English does raise the price. It's just the way that it works in the world of football, especially in the Premier League. Matt G says, do you think our transfer business this summer would have been different if the Super League had gone ahead? Maybe, but you never know what would happen. You never know if teams would have refused to sell to Super League clubs this summer. Maybe that's something that would have gone down. You don't know if players would have wanted to move to a Super League club because of all the kind of confusion and apprehension around that possible move. You would imagine it would have been different. How different and what those differences would have been, though, Matt, I have absolutely no idea, and I'm glad that it didn't happen. That is a certainty. That is for sure. Let's scroll down the chat box a little bit more. And says, Jordan says, would you still take Ødegaard if he was 15 million? I kind of use this phrase of it's not my money quite often. And at the end of the day, if Arsenal get good players in, if they cost whatever they cost, if they're performing at the top level, then they're justifying their figure. So it would depend on how they perform. I think that it's quite a lot of money for Martin Ødegaard. I think he's worth less than that. I think you're looking between 35 and 40 million pounds as a genuine value for Ødegaard. But if that's what it costs to get him in, and it's him or no one, I definitely would lean towards paying the money to get Ødegaard in, would be where I would stand on that one. Matt Denny says, would it matter if we got Ramsdale at that price if we get other targets? And this is a good point, Matt. And the answer to that question is, would it matter that much? And the honest answer is probably no. If Arsenal do manage to get their attacking midfielder, if they move on certain players, if they improve the midfield, if they improve at right back, getting in Ramsdale is probably not such a bad thing if we do. It's just if Arsenal spend this money and don't get those positions, it's going to be scrutinised. It's going to be criticised. It's going to be looked at very, very carefully and with a lot of criticism. So that's the big caveat with that one, Matt. It is, if we get the targets we need and we want, and we sign Ramsdale for that amount of money, I'm not going to be too concerned. In fact, I'll probably be quite pleased. But it will be it will be the interesting point. And Yankee Gunner, aka Elliot, aka the Arsenal Vision podcast's fantastic and fast-speaking host, did point out that we would spend then, if we signed Ramsdale, upwards of £100 million, and yet you would look at the squad and say we haven't massively improved it. I mean, Ben White, I think, is a good improvement. Lokonga improves the depth, and Tavares improves kind of the depth at left back, especially in a backup position. But in regards to kind of a real improvement on the first team, £100 million spent, you would say that I don't think it does it to what you would expect a £100 million investment to do in Arsenal. But we will wait and see, and these are necessary signings at the end of the day. That has to be remembered at all points, for sure. Who says, frustrating transfer window. Big up, Tom, for your consistency. Thank you ever so much, mate. Really appreciate the kind words. And if you haven't checked out already, I did a show with Soph over at the Highbury Squad earlier on today. Really fantastic channel, and you definitely should check it out. And a massive congratulations as well to Harry Simew for hitting 15,000 subscribers over at the Chronicles of a Gooner as well. People are making moves, and it's great to see. Powell says, is there any chance that we will go for a number 8? Maddison, ironically, can play in the number 8 position and does fancy himself more so as a number 8. I would like us to see a Bruno Guimaraes come in. Zakaria can also play at number 8. I hope we do, but I think it's unlikely. Torreira says, any chance of a centre midfielder? As again, just kind of touched on that. I think that it's probably a long shot. I think the 3 positions we might get are going to be attacking midfield, goalkeeper, and I have a feeling it's either going to be the forward or the right back, depending on who leaves. That's a big thing this window. Jamie says, Tom, do you think the Ramsdale deal hangs on money for Willock? I don't think so, because I think Arsenal have already that deal's kind of going to get done. I expect that Newcastle and Willock will come to an agreement in terms of personal terms. The clubs have already agreed a deal. I don't think it hangs on that. I think Arsenal do have more money than we expect. I just don't think they are willing to just throw it away, if that makes sense. Although you might say they're doing that with Ramsdale. I just don't think they're willing to pay over the odds for certain players. That's for sure. Arteta and Edu don't know what they're doing. This is obvious as day, says John. John always tuning in to throw us our negative point of view, John. I admire your consistency, mate. I really do. Thracian says, what about the right back, Tom? Who are we getting? At the moment, we have 5 options, believe it or not. And I'm actually going to be putting together a piece tomorrow for Football London as well about this right back position. We have 4 clear options in Bellerin, Chambers, Cedric, Maitland-Niles, and Ben White can also play at right back as well. So it's crazy how many options we have, and yet none of them stand out as natural, real top quality right backs. It depends on who leaves, Thracian. It's as simple as that. It depends on who leaves. Vinny says, doesn't look like we are going to sign Tammy. Do you think Brett was the right decision, or would have you gone? His name's not Jonathan, Vinny. His name was Matt. And yeah, I would have picked Matt if I was Priya. If you know what we're talking about, you know what we're talking about. If you don't, you'll never know. Super Flea says, why sell Martinez for 20 million? Yeah, it's happened. It happened. It's done. It's over. There's no point crying over spilt milk anymore. It was a mistake. We regret it. We move on. We deal with it. Let's scroll up a little bit more and get some more comments that we've probably missed. Daniel says, if Arsenal will spend £25 million on a second goalkeeper and then lack the money to sign a midfielder and a right back and then struggle to win matches, then we will be the most stupid club. It would be a little bit silly, wouldn't it, if that is certainly the case. Peter Renner says, how good is Ramsdale with the ball at his feet? Better than Leno. But again, I talk a lot about that in a lot more detail in the article that's coming out tomorrow on Football London. So make sure you do check that out. I'll definitely be tweeting it from my account at the Gooner Talk TV. So make sure you do go and give that a read. I'm sure you won't miss it from when you turn over our notification bell. So there you go. Let's go for Ans, who says, are we not going for a centre mid because Lokonga is better than expected? I think that is very much the case, Ans. I think he has surprised everyone during pre-season as to how mature, how strong he looks in the middle of the park. And I think that is definitely a big, big reason as to why we are not seeing a proactive search for a central midfielder in the latter stages of this window. That's for sure. Thracian says, need more likes, guys. Only 77 so far. There's over 350 of you watching. Let's try and smash that like button so you can show your support and appreciation for the consistent work that goes into putting these shows out for you every single day. I realized I've just been showing you a picture of Ramsdale while I've been answering your questions. Insomniac says, we are the same situation with an empty midfield again. What does actually change this season? I don't think it's an empty midfield. I think we've improved the midfield with Lokonga coming in. I hope we're going to improve it further with a number 10 coming in. Obviously, we've improved the left-back position, the centre-back position. We look like we're going to improve the goalkeeping position, but we haven't done enough still. There is more that needs to be done. And if it isn't done, the window will certainly be a big failure. I've seen some people saying that this window is already a failure. I don't think you can say that until it's finished. If it ended now, then yeah, sure thing. But we need to wait until the end of the window. Then we can have a proper assessment of what has gone down. But the fact that we've not got the players in necessary before the start of the season is a big worry. A big, big worry. Hilmi says, how many signings we'll get until the end of the season? I said I predicted 3. We'll see how right that is. Jacobus says, Tom, do you think the indecisiveness, good word, will come to haunt us due to the fact that we are waiting on players such as Erdegaard? I think it will. Absolutely. I think indecision, I think stuttering, dithering, all these kind of adjectives that you're using to describe kind of similar things. I think all of them are appropriate, and all of them certainly do describe the situation that Arsenal find themselves in. So yes, I certainly would. John says, Tom, do you still think I was wrong to say that they have money to spend, that we have reason to conclude that they have money to spend? 30 million for Ramsdale, still in for Maddison. I think I'm right. John, you might be right, sir. I think that they have money to spend. I just don't think we know how much. And I think that the indication is that they're only willing to go to certain prices on certain players. And despite having money, they still seem to be refusing to overspend on certain players. That's for sure. Wes says, would you be happy with Tolisso? I was. When I first read it, I was like, that's really interesting. Good player. But having checked his injury record, it's a worry. It's a big, big worry. And I'm not sure if we should burden ourselves with another injury-prone central midfielder. And he is injured. And I use that phrase of injury-prone lightly because it's important you don't overuse it for players like Tariq Lamptey. He's not an injury-prone player. He had one big injury. That doesn't make him injury-prone. But Tolisso is an injury-prone player. And I'm not sure I would commit to someone with that many frequent issues as he does indeed suffer with. So that's why I would be a little bit standoffish with Tolisso at the moment. China says, Tom, are we linked with Matheus Cunha in the Bundesliga from Hertha Berlin? No, I've not seen any links with him, and that's a shame for Drew because Drew would very much like to see Arsenal move for him, that's for sure. And I think that is where we are going to finish off. So thank you so much for tuning in. Apologies again for those of you that were tuning in at 8 a.m. expecting to see a live show. As I've said already, I'm at the Emirates tomorrow. I'm busy. I'm sorry. I can't apologize anymore. Please do make sure you drop a like on the video still and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And please, again, do go and check out the Pick Your Team from the Arsenal Review in the comments section, or rather the description of today's video. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. As always, drop a like, drop a subscription, drop a join if you'd like to help support the channel even further, and join our Discord server as well. See you guys very, very soon. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'll see you tomorrow. And as always, up the Arsenal.